Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and this is episode 8 of building a high-end 450 size quadcopter, and we are finally there. We're going to replicate what's going on in this animation right now and we're going to fly the quadcopter. So I've got my GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition strapped to my head. Yes, you heard me right. And this time I'm going to show you me plugging in the voltage checker into the balance port of the 4-cell battery. A few people complained about that in the cheap quadcopter build, so I'm showing it here. You press the button on the top there and you can select the voltage on which you wish the alarm to go off at. I'm selecting 3.7 volts. So we plug in the quadcopter in and arming it with the arm button. That's really important to do. I forget to do that all the time. I'm now putting the yaw in and you'll watch the multicolored lights flash on the Pixhawk and it will arm itself. But what I'm doing is I'm keeping the yaw in because we're going to go into the auto trim option and watch that green light on the Pixhawk. You can see it's now flashing multicolored. Our task now is to take off and keep the quadcopter as still as possible, and the Pixhawk is going to learn which way we are moving the quadcopter and it's going to trim it for us. We've got about 20 to 30 seconds to do that, and you need a really calm day to do this. So this is taken at about dusk time, so apologies for the lighting conditions, but I'm just keeping it as still as I can, and that light changes to green and then the auto trim is complete. You disconnect it and start it back up again and it has saved those trim settings. So now we're going to arm the quadcopter and take off, but this time we are going to do our auto tune. So we can flip it into altitude hold mode, and then I'm just going to let the quad stabilize a little bit, and you see that I'm going to flip the switch on channel 7 and that is going to initiate auto tune, and you can see here it's starting to do its little dance, and what it's doing is it's putting in its own input and seeing how it reacts to it and changing the PID settings, so we don't have to mess with any of that. Now it is an altitude hold mode at this time, so I had to make sure that the throttle is at the 50% mark so that it stays at the same height. Now this auto tune feature, it doesn't get it right every time, and this was an okay tune but not the best. I went and did it again, and actually you can see here when the quadcopter starts to drift it stops doing the auto tune, and this is again why you need a uber calm day to do this. So I flew the quadcopter out and you can see here it started doing it again. Now it only tunes the pitch and roll axis, not the yaw, but I had no problems with the stock yaw settings. I believe on the updated version of Quadcopter it's going to do the yaw as well. So what I'm doing here is it is drifting slightly, so I've got the GoPro on my head and I'm just following the quadcopter along as it does its thing. I haven't got a huge amount of space here to do this, and I do have to stop it and move the quadcopter back into the center of the field, but eventually it stops doing its thing. It took around about 6 minutes, and you can see there now that it's just hovering in altitude mode, and what it's doing here is it's saying that, right, I've done all of my tests and I want you to fly it around now and see if you like it. Now this particular tune, as I said, it wasn't the best. I'm getting slight oscillations as I'm flying around, and I went ahead and did this test again, but just for this demonstration it was fine. You can see I'm flying it around in altitude hold mode and it's fairly smooth. It was only when I got it close that I could see that it was jittering slightly. As I say, I have since done the test again and I've got a perfect tune now. What you have to do is you have to make sure that channel 7 is in its on position when you land it, and when you disarm it and disconnect it, that will then save the PIDs to the Pixhawk. See, now I've put it in loiter mode, and if you have followed all the instructions that we've done in this video, you should get an absolutely perfect GPS hold, and that is what we have got here. I'm not touching the stick at all and the thing is absolutely locked in. I just bring the throttle down so that it's sort of at my height, and then I'm able to circle around it and get really close with the camera and just see how great it's holding that position. I have kept the telemetry module on here. I didn't really need to do that, that's what that big aerial sticking up is, but I'm not using it. And I probably 9 times out of 10 won't be using that at all, really. I'm going to be using the telemetry module for the FrSky receiver and also the Minim OSD to transmit the telemetry back. But you do need that for doing missions, so we'll look at that in a later video. So I'm now taking it out of those automatic modes and going for the stabilized mode and just flying it around. The battery was holding up perfect. It's really good having that 4S power, but also getting around about a 15-minute flight here, and the voltage alarm didn't even go off. So great flight times. Of course, it's not loaded up with any gear at the moment, so it's running fairly light. Testing out the yaw, just flying it around, just getting used to it. Now, it's not the most sporty of flyers, but it's not meant to be. This is a full-blown autopilot GPS, the full works, and you don't really want to be doing acrobatics and things like that. What we're after out of this setup is a very stable platform to stick a camera on and a gimbal and things. So I've stuck it in altitude hold mode here, and also I'm going to put it in loiter mode, I think, because I want to try the return to launch mode. I'm just messing around with it. And you know what, even in the altitude hold mode, it's just solid as a rock. If you get the trim correct, then there's just no issues at all. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is we've got it in loiter mode, and I'm going to walk back to that hill over there, and I plan to engage the return to launch. This is actually my first go at it. I've not tried it at all up to this point, so I figure it might overshoot from where I took off from. So I'm going to stand on this hill and we're going to do return to launch. Now you can't really see the quadcopter very well at this point, but it's just getting some height on it. You can change all that in the settings, but it's quite a nice height that it went to here, and it's very quickly finding where it took off from, and it didn't overshoot at all, so I didn't need to walk all that distance back. So it's starting to descend now, so I'm going to walk closer to it, and it really does look like it's going to land exactly where it took off, which is really impressive. What I'm hoping for is that it's not going to land in that long grass, because it may catch the props in that, but it's not going to. It absolutely took off in this position, and it's landed in that position absolutely perfect. So there you go, that is episode 8 of building a high-end 450 size quadcopter. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.